Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we have a special guest with us. We have Rishma Dhalla. She's actually going to be talking about the face of stress. And I have had the privilege of working with Rishma many times. She has been a registered occupational therapist for the last 25 years. She has worked in many settings for acute care to long-term care in both the public and private health care systems. Rishma is also a cancer survivor, so she has been a keen understanding of stress and its impact on health and well-being. After her cancer treatments, Rishma began teaching stress management in a healthy heart program at a local hospital. Through her research on the topic, as well as her own personal search to manage stress, Rishma has accumulated a wealth of knowledge surrounding stress. Now that she has her own occupational therapy practice, Rishma would like to share this knowledge with the hope of helping as many people as possible manage the stress levels and achieve more positive health outcomes. I'm Fatima.
Fred.
We're John.
I am Saireen.
Excellent. So now let's bring on Rishma. Hi, Rishma. Thank you very much for joining us. You're actually muted.
Can I unmute her?
Yeah, you can.
Nope, it's not letting me unmute you.
Can you hear us, Rishma?
No,
Can you
did.
unmute?
Oh, she's doing it manually.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Ah, there you go.
Yay.
Hey.
Excellent. Thanks, Rishma. It's nice to have you on board. And if
Hi, Rishma.
Hello, it's really nice to be here. Thank you so much, Fatima, for the opportunity and for all of
you could tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
So, as you said in the introduction, Fatima, I've been an occupational therapist for quite some time, over half a century. No, over a quarter of a century.
I don't think you're that old, Rishma.
And you know, I really have, in the last probably 10 years or so, accumulated a lot of knowledge around stress and the impact of stress on physical health, but also emotional well-being, mental well-being. And so I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to come on here and share whatever I can that might help people to manage their stress a little bit better.
Awesome.
Excellent. So what exactly do you do and how do you do it? I know I was there through a part of your journey, you know, with cancer, and I'm pretty sure that had a lot to do with it, but how do you actually rise from that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that really need to happen first in order for you to be able to manage your stress effectively. And one of those things is just being aware that stress might actually be impacting you, right? Because if we're not aware, then we're really not able to try and investigate or explore what it is that might be causing us stress. So awareness, I think, is one of the first steps. And then with awareness comes hopefully the desire to actually know a little bit more and to explore and investigate and then see what is it that's causing, you know, us stress? How are we responding to those different things that are causing us stress? Because we respond in different ways to different stressors, right? So really understanding ourselves the best that we can, and then starting to put into plan ways that we can more effectively manage the stress. But we can't do that until we actually identify what our stressors are and how we're responding to those stressors.
So you need to find a person that is willing to understand that, because I found myself talking to people and trying to guide them towards a stress-free life, or knowing that their life right now is too stressful and they're so stressed out that they haven't got the time to eat well, or they haven't got the time to exercise because they have so much to do and the stress never go away and the health take a toll. How do you get to speak to someone and try to make them aware about that stress? Or
yeah, and you raise such a good point, Fred, because, you know, it's so important that the awareness is there. So, you know, we run into people all the time where we can sort of go, oh, I know what would really help this person, right? I know how they can really improve themselves or help themselves. But if they are not aware, and if they are not ready for the advice or for the insight or for the reflection or for the change for themselves, then no matter what advice they're given, it's really not going to be very helpful. So, you know, I say this a lot, is we're the only person that we can actually change. We can't change other people. So even when we want to help advise other people, we still don't have that power to help them unless they're open to it, and unless they are also aware that maybe a change is actually needed.
How do you, how do you actually, like, say, people identify stress? Because, you know, everyone has it, whether they feel it, you know, even say it or whatnot. But how does someone kind of, because you got to identify it first, right? Like for myself, I know I have stress. I may not know what it feels like, or maybe they've been with it for so long that now it's so normal. Like it's a normal day of life that they kind of put in a box and they've contained it, but that's not healthy as well. So how do you kind of identify things right off, like when you help someone?
Yeah, and so, you know, the unfortunate part is that it's usually a crisis of some kind that will lead to the person going, oh, okay, so I guess I need to maybe make some changes in my life, right? So either it's a health crisis, and this is where I saw the people that I saw in the Healthy Heart program. So maybe they had a heart attack, right? Or maybe they were told that they're really on the border and they need to be really careful and they need to figure out their stress. Maybe it's the end of a relationship, you know, and then that's a crisis in your life. Or maybe it's some kind of a financial loss, or, you know, a loss of a job or something, and that's a crisis. So, you know, or a health crisis of someone else, someone that you love. So usually it is a crisis that will actually bring someone stress to their awareness, right? But even then, if they are not ready or open or willing, unfortunately, they may not be able to make any changes yet to manage their stress. So even if a crisis pushes you to the point of recognizing that you have some stress going on, it still takes that willingness and awareness and reflection and ability to say, okay, I think that I need to make some changes, so let me get some help so that I can make some changes.
Right.
So when you're working in a 9-to-5 job, basically, and you have all these maybe 50 to 100 emails coming in, how do you manage that stress? And at the same time, how do you not get triggered by, oh my God, I have so many things to do and I don't have enough time to get it done, and then what other people are going to think of me, and if I don't get it done, what's going to, you know, is it going to affect my job performance?
Yeah, and that's a very accurate portrayal of what a lot of people actually go through Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, right? So, you know, I think the really important thing is prioritization, right? Like making sure that you have a way to be able to prioritize which emails need to be responded to, you know, ASAP, which ones can wait for a couple of hours, which ones can wait for a day or two, which ones can you respond to and say, hey, I'm not acknowledging that you sent me this email, give me until next week and then I'll get back to you, just so that they're not left hanging and wondering, like, did you get the email, did you not get the email, right? I think the other, I mean, it's very easy to say time management, but I don't think that's what you're talking about, right? So of course, time management is something that all of us as working adults are going to have to learn that skill really well. So it's not really about time management, but it's also then about, you know, in your own mind, making sure that you understand what your limitations are as one human being and one part of your workplace, right? So what can you control and what's within your ability to control, and what can't you control, right? Because the things that you can't control sometimes are the things that are actually keeping you awake at night, which is unfortunate because we can't control them, right? And so it's really getting clear about what is within my sphere of control, and then how am I going to manage what's in my sphere of control to the best of my ability in terms of prioritization. I hope that answered your question.
Also,
so now I've got a question for you, Rishma. So now, you know, you say that stress takes on different faces. What are some of the faces that stress takes on, and how does it show up in someone's body or someone's appearance?
Yeah, and it's similar to the question that John posed, is like, how do you even know if you have stress or if you need to look after stress? Yeah. And it manifests itself in different ways with different people, but also within the same person, it can manifest in different ways depending on the different stressor that person is responding to. So some of the things that might bring to our attention that maybe we're stressed, for some people, it could be the physical symptoms. It could be your heart beats faster, your mouth gets dry, your hands get sweaty. For some people, it could be the emotional response. So the anger, the fear, the anxiety, the resentment, right? And then for other people, it could be the sort of the mental or cognitive signs and symptoms that start to appear, like maybe you're just a little bit more confused these days, or maybe your thinking is kind of, not clear, you're a bit foggy, or maybe you're really grumpy. And so there are lots of different ways for you to be able to actually observe and maybe acknowledge or recognize that you might actually be responding to stress, right? So for everyone, it's different. And that's why it's really important to actually get to know yourself really well and get to know what your particular stressors are, but also how is it that you actually respond to some of those stressors? Because then once you know what to look for, then as soon as you start to experience some of those symptoms within yourself, you can stop and go, okay, is there something right now that's actually causing me stress? What's going on? What are my thoughts about this? And let me just see if I can really get a handle on, what it is that's going on with me that's stressing me out.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess part of your role is to help people, not like identifying is what I was just asking about, but kind of having those people kind of catch themselves, like just being like they can kind of catch themselves before something gets further or snowballs into something bigger, because right now, with what's going on, I think stress has gone up because people have stress with work, people have stress with family, with their health, with whatever it may be. Maybe it's an illness, but this is the first time in at least our lifetime that the stress is global, right? So how has this kind of affected, have you had more people come in because of what's going on, or is it compounding onto everything else?
Absolutely. And so, it's kind of a little bit of both. So for those people who maybe were already aware prior to COVID of what some of their stressors were, they're probably in a better situation to manage the stress and anxiety that's going along with COVID right now. If they've, had some coping strategies taught to them, or if they've developed some skills as to how to actually manage their anxiety or their worry, right? Mm-hmm. But for those people who have maybe never had that and maybe even aren't even aware right now that COVID is actually stressing them out, is a lot more difficult, right? And those people would have to actually seek help. And so once somebody actually seeks help, then you know that, okay, they're aware that they need help. And that's where you start to explore and find out, okay, what are some of your stressors? Are you aware of what they are? How do you respond to them? And then making that link also, because I think that a lot of people maybe don't really understand that the way that we perceive our stressors and the way that we respond to our stressors actually impacts our life choices. Like it literally determines the behaviors and actions that we're going to
see that.
Right?
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so I think that it isn't until people have that clarity and that awareness of the actual consequences of the way that they've been responding to stress and how it's impacted their behaviors, choices, their relationships, and all of that stuff. It isn't until there's clarity about that we can start the work of, okay, so what I'd like you to do is actually just observe, what's your communication like? How do you communicate with people? Are you an effective listener? Are there particular situations that really increase your stress? And what do you think that's all about, right? So it's then really about reflecting, observing, and then coming back and then putting a plan in place in terms of, all right, how can we now go and try and put a way forward to manage the stress? So, there's really only two options. You can either change the stressor, if that's possible, or you can change your response to the stress, right? And if the stressor is a person, another person. The only person you can change is yourself, right? So then the only option, the best option, is really to change your response. And I think that that's the one that gets people the most, and that's the one that causes years and decades of, you know, angst and difficulty between people, because it's a stress of, well, why can't you just be who I want you to be? Why can't you just do things the way that I want you to do them?
It's
right?
so much easier to blame somebody else than to try to change ourselves, right?
100%. And that's one of the things that I always taught in my classes was, you know, you have to look in the mirror. You have to be willing to look in the mirror and realize that just like everybody around you is imperfect, you are also imperfect, but that doesn't make you unworthy. We are all worthy human beings. We're all worthy of having happiness and joy and fulfilling relationships. We just need to be really open about what are our faults or imperfections or weaknesses, whatever you want to call them, your limitations. And then how can we actually, you know, put some goals in place to work on improving those things and work on actually fulfilling the relationships that we have and setting some really positive goals for ourselves, not just physical health-wise, not just emotional health-wise, not just mental health-wise, but also spiritual health-wise, because they're all connected.
Yeah. Do you also, sorry, you go ahead.
Okay, thanks. In the 1990s, I actually ended up going on workers' compensation. And I was sent to this clinic where I had an occupational therapist, a psychiatrist, actually psychologist, excuse me, acupuncturist. I had a team of people working on me and a physiotherapist. And I thought to myself, why? Why do I have to have all these people working on me? Because I just have to fix my hands. What do the other people have a role on my hands, right? I couldn't understand it at the time, but it made so much difference because they're, like you say, you're becoming more aware of the way you're doing things. How did you get that way? And I think that's just huge. And you know what? At the time, you don't talk about those things because you're going, I don't want to be labeled. I don't want someone to think I'm sick, you know, and I just want them to focus on my hands to heal, not the overwhelmed being.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point, Saireen, because, you know, I think it's that fear that actually becomes a barrier, right? So it's our fears that sometimes we don't even acknowledge to ourselves that become barriers for us to actually be able to open up and improve ourselves. So, I mean, hopefully you were able to at some point open up to, you know, the other team members that were trying to provide you with help and care. And I think that being an occupational therapist, I mean, I can't speak for the other disciplines, and they're all very important in their own different ways. Occupational therapists will look at the person as a whole, and occupational therapists realize that one area of your life, if there is an injury or illness or some kind of difficulty in one area of your life, it will impact the other areas of your life, right? And so it's a matter of really discovering what is the most important thing to you and what's standing in the way of this most important thing to you, and then how can we work together so that we can actually clear away that barrier and work our way for you to be able to achieve whatever it is that's meaningful and important to you.
So now, do you have any tips to give as to how to mitigate the stress that you're in, whether it be journaling, whether it be meditating? Do you have like certain tips that you always share with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I wish that there was one magic, you know, do this and everything will be just fine, right? But as we all know, I mean, that's not how life works, right? So if I had it, I'd share it with everybody. But, you know, it really is very personal, and it depends on a lot of different things. It depends on a person's personality as well. How they communicate, how they think about things, what it is that's actually the barrier for them to be able to effectively manage their stress. So once that's identified, right, whether is it your communication skills? Is it the way that you're thinking about things? Is it the fact that you can't forget about your past? Or is it the fact that you're totally stuck in the future and can't really, like, what is it? So once that's determined, then there are ways that that can start to work towards kind of answering some of those questions. Some of the things that are kind of universal in terms of stress management are some of the things you've mentioned. So, there's journaling, but more than journaling, it's gratitude, right? So actually the studies show that practicing gratitude is probably the most effective way to rewire your brain. If you are kind of stuck in a glass half empty way of thinking, practicing gratitude every day has really been shown to work on rewiring the brain. So if I were to say a couple of generic things that maybe everybody could do to try to manage their stress a little bit better, it would be practicing gratitude and journaling. It would be also some kind of mindfulness or relaxation or meditation, whatever it is that is more comforting to you, because very rarely does our brain have a chance to just not be active, right? So sometimes for many of us, especially if sleep is one of the factors that gets affected with our stress, even when we sleep, our brain doesn't have the opportunity to really be still and be quiet, right? And so it's making that conscious time during the day to be able to have that stillness and that quietness and that reflection. Is it okay if I spend a couple more minutes on gratitude and just really?
For sure.
Yeah.
So the really important thing about gratitude is, it's not just about, well, I'm really grateful that the sun is shining today, right? Or I'm really grateful to have my health, or I'm really grateful for my family. Those are all wonderful things, and they are things that we should always be grateful for sure, right? But if you want your gratitude to actually make changes for you and within you, like from the inside out, what you're going to want to look for every single day are very specific things that you can be grateful for that are only about you, not about anybody else, right? So what is it about the weather that you're grateful for today? Well, I'm grateful that the sun is shining and that I have about, an hour time where I can actually go out for a walk today. So I'm really grateful for that, right? Or what is it about your family in particular that you're grateful for? Well, my mom's great and she's in a good mood today and she's going to make me my Sunday breakfast, even though it's only Thursday today, right? So that's something very specific that is only for you, right? And that's what happens with gratitude, is that when we start to see and understand that the universe is actually putting things in place to make our life better, that's when we actually start to see that we are worthy, right? That even though we may have things that we need to work on or improve, but we are worthy of having a full, enriching life. And so gratitude is an amazing technique or strategy that works to rewire the brain and actually helps people to shift from a more sort of negative or pessimistic way of thinking about things over to a more positive and optimistic viewpoint.
I actually really like that, because a lot of times when you hear gratitude, it's pretty generic, but I like how you've added that extra step by going deeper and making it more personable to you. I really like that. And in your journey, if you don't mind, because this was something that was really big for you, was being a cancer survivor. And I know I watched you through it, and you did actually, you were very graceful, very, pleasant. And how was that for you, that journey? And how did you overcome that stress?
Yeah, and I think that, initially I was just in survival mode, right? Initially it was all about just, I have children and I just need to get through this and I need to be strong for them, right? So really my actual sort of processing of it all didn't start until I was almost finished, until it actually hit me what I had just gone through, right? And that's where I started to have difficulties. Like I started to become depressed. And it was actually my counselor who suggested that I start writing a blog, and really in that way I could do two things. I could process everything that I'd been through so that I could reflect on it and actually start to understand it better. But because she knew that I'm in a helping profession and that's just who I am, she said that that would also help other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I could share my journey and share the lessons that I've learned, that hopefully that can help other people as well. And so it was that crisis. So cancer wasn't the crisis, right? It was actually the realization of everything that I had just gone through was my crisis, right? And how it could have actually gone. And the fact that it didn't go that way was something that I had to reflect on. And those were the things that I was grateful for. But throughout the process, I was doing a lot of soul searching, and I read a lot of books about, spirituality, about death and dying, because I had to. As a person that has cancer, you absolutely have to face the fact that you're not going to be here one day, right? And what does that mean? And what does that mean to your life right now? How do you want to live your life? Because if tomorrow is going to be my last day, then how is it that I want to live my life? So that whole journey was filled with so much new learning. And if I had to turn the clock back, I wouldn't change anything, because everything that happened exactly the way that it was meant to happen, and led me to actually the place where I am today. Because if I hadn't gone through the cancer, I wouldn't have even had that deeper understanding about stress and the connection with health and well-being. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking with you today, because I think that if I hadn't had cancer, I would have just lived my life for the day, right? Or for the next week, or for the next year, or for the next 5 years, and not really given it much thought in terms of what is the meaning of my life and what is it that I want to leave behind when I'm not here one day.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, that's huge. That is definitely huge. We are actually almost coming to an end. I've got a question. What is the difference between flight and fight versus, like a prolonged stress?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. So the stress response, the way that it was hardwired in human beings, offers you two choices, and that's to stay and fight or to run away and hide. And that's where the fight or flight phrase comes from, right? And it comes from a time when, threats were few, but they were actually really serious threats, right? Back in the time of the cave people. And so what happens, or the way that the process is supposed to work, is that once that threat is actually resolved or cleared up, or it's gone away, or you've ran away from it, or you've removed yourself from it, then the stress response that you had actually sort of gets turned off, right? So then all of the hormones that are released in the stress response, the cortisol, the adrenaline, and all the hormones that are actually shut down in the stress process, like the melatonin, right? All of those things return to normal levels. That's what's supposed to happen. What happens in the modern world, though, now is that there are many more things that we perceive as threats. And therefore, there are many of us who are chronically experiencing that fight or flight response. So everything from, when you have that day when nothing goes right, that's the perfect example, right? Because it's just stress upon stress upon stress upon stress upon stress. And for some people, that is just their life all the time, because they see or perceive every event as a threat somehow. And so because of that perception, it activates their stress response. And so that's pretty much always on, right? So imagine having a really bad day, and then you can't sleep at night because now you're thinking about what a bad day you had, but then you're doing this day in and day out and night in and night out. And so that's chronic long-term stress. And that is very, very risky and dangerous for the body, for the mind, for our emotions, and for our spirit. And so that's why it's really, really important to increase your awareness about what it is that might be causing you stress. You can identify for yourself if those are things that are just, temporary and it only happens once in a while. You can also start to identify if there are things that you are experiencing that are kind of more long-term. Maybe you've even been experiencing it for years, for example, right? And then see how you can actually learn to try to manage that effectively. And it's not always about removing yourself. It's not always about ending a relationship. You know, there are ways that you can actually manage your stress more effectively by just learning some additional skills that will help you with your confidence and with your communication.
Excellent. So it does look like we are at an end. So do you guys have anything else that you would like to say to Rishma?
Do you actually work with, because I know stress can be negative to your health. And as a chef and nutritionist, I don't have your background, but I can guide people into eating a whole food diet, like cleaner food, in order to minimize the bad effect of stress. Do you work with, do you have a team of people that you work with to teach your client how to maybe introduce some better food or what to avoid in order to minimize the effect?
Yeah, and you actually bring a really good point. When I was working in the Healthy Heart program, we actually had a team. So we had a nurse, we had a physiotherapist, we had a dietitian, and we had myself as the occupational therapist. And then we also had the cardiologist who was on the team. So they were actually getting education about all of those different ways that you can manage your stress and increasing their knowledge about what can actually exacerbate their stress, or what can actually help them to manage their stress in the best way possible, right? So physical activity is one of the really good things you can do with your stress, but also eating healthy, because when we're not well nourished, then we're not actually giving our body that fighting chance, right? It affects our immunity, it affects our ability to sleep, it affects our weight, it affects a whole bunch of different things, right? That torpedo. So for me, what I try to do is actually let them know that these are the ways that I can help you as an OT. These are the things I can help you with. But these are the things I would really, encourage you to find out a little bit more about and see if you can actually get some help in these areas of your life. Because as you start to explore, you can actually start to determine, okay, what are some of the factors that are actually not helping this person manage their stress very well, right? And you can start to see, okay, maybe they're going to need the help of, somebody like a dietitian or a nutritionist that can actually help them to really improve on their nutrition so that they can actually have a fighting chance to deal with their stress in the best way possible. So I wish I had a team now that I'm doing this privately. I wish I had a team around me, but I definitely know who to actually send people to, and, what I can suggest for them that they can find help in other ways as well.
Nice, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
John and Saireen?
It sounds like it's a team effort. I mean, I mentioned this to our group here, is that health overall, what that means for each person, is made up of a whole bunch of pieces of a puzzle, and sometimes nutrition, like what Fred mentioned, is the one that gets, for someone that might be the high point, like that's their most concern. Somebody else could have an illness, somebody else might not be getting enough sleep, and then someone that doesn't exercise, so that could be their number one. But I think that is part of a whole bunch of things that needs to be managed to have someone go on this journey to better themselves. And I think in your occupation, Rishma, is that's the hard thing, is that everyone's pieces of this puzzle is different, right? So it's challenging to figure it out first, and then see what fits in and what's lacking, and what's maybe too much, maybe they're getting too much sleep, and then kind of reallocating everything back to like a good steady norm as best as we can, right?
Yeah, you got it right on the dot there. That's exactly what it is. And as OTs, that's what we would do, right? That's the work that we would do with our client, is just to really figure out where are they right now, what is their particular situation, and then where do we want to actually put some of the effort so that we can get them the help that they need.
Okay. Thank you.
I love your tip about gratitude and writing down deeper.
Yeah, so do I.
Interaction and how that feels for you.
And I wanted to add one more thing, if I could, about gratitude, is that when like, so if you practice gratitude before you go to bed at night, if you have a specific number of items that you are accountable to be grateful for, so say, let's use the word 3, the number 3, okay? You've got 3 things that you want to be grateful for, and now you know that you have to be very specific about those 3 things that have to be really about you. What that does is that it forces you during the day to look for 3 things that you can be specifically grateful for before you go to bed. So it actually starts to work in the background to shift the way that you think, to shift the way that you perceive things, to shift the way that you look at things, because now you're actually looking for positive signs or positive, things to bank away rather than focusing on anything negative, right? So it really starts to shift your perspective.
I just wanted to add that, it's so important. If we hurt ourselves, it's not just about the physical, it's about emotional and other meanings. And so I think it's really good to reflect on everything, like you say, become very aware and be more intuitive about your body and ask those questions: what happened, why it happened, or anything like that. What's it related to? What just triggered me? Was it a conversation, or I have a headache because I just got off the phone with someone, right? So, so thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rishma. Do you have any last words that you do want to say to our viewers?
I just want to say, don't lose hope. Like, there is so much help out there. So don't ever feel like you're in a situation that you're not going to be able to get out of, because you're not. There's so much help out there. So just reach out. And as you can see from all of you here, from Fatima, from Saireen, from Fred, from John, there are people that really are making it their life's mission to, try to live the best quality life possible and helping other people to do the same. So don't ever lose hope. There's always help out there, and just reach out whenever you need to.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, Rishma. It was a pleasure having you. And so is there a way that they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can feel free to give me a call on my cell phone, 604-307-2481. Or you can send me an email, rishma.ot4life@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter. So there's lots of different ways to find me. You can even Google my YouTube channel. I've actually started making videos about stress management on YouTube. So if you Google my name, you'll find me on YouTube as well. So lots of different ways to connect with me, and I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Perfect. Well, it was so nice having you. And like everyone has said, I think the gratitude has really stuck with us. Your tip about gratitude, that's really stuck with us. But it's always been a pleasure, working with you, talking to you, and seeing you through your journey, but also now having you here on our show professionally. It's been a pleasure. And so now on the 27th, oh my God, it's already almost November, guys. Can you believe it?
I know.
Like, this is crazy. So we're going to be talking about healthy Halloween. And I think Rishma's already got the color for Halloween on.
Yeah.
Did you look ahead into our And then on the 29th, we've got another guest on, Ryan McKenzie. He's going to be talking about healthy laundry, another day that you don't want to miss out. Again, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. We will get back to you as soon as possible. If you haven't already, please like our Facebook page, our YouTube, our Instagram, all of our pages. You can find us at The Healthy Way Vibes, and also check out Rishma at Rishma OT for Life, right?
Yep.
There you go. And we will be posting her links on the video today, so you can reach out to her that way. Thank you so much again, and thanks for joining in. Bye for now.
Thank you
for tuning in. Thanks, Rishma.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.